And next I'd like to introduce one of our partners, Kevin Finke. He's a culture evangelist and storyteller extraordinaire. Kevin?
Thank you so much. First of all, to the conference board and also to Kaiser for having me today. I greatly appreciate. I love having forums and opportunities to tell my story and also to help others tell theirs. I have been a storyteller my entire life, and the last 20 years of my career I've done that in a very marketing-centric way, working with big global organizations, help to tell their stories externally and build their consumer cultures. I actually sort of turned inward in about 2010. I got out of the business. I took a sabbatical, and during that sabbatical, I launched my company, Experience Willow, and we are a storytelling firm. We help now companies and cultures transform themselves by really leveraging the power of story and also shared experiences. The first thing we have to always do is know, what is our story? What is our common shared story that we share as an organization? What at the deepest levels provide the most meaning to us? What is our purpose? What are our values? The next piece is we actually help them sow that. Story can only come to life in people. And people need experiences in order for stories to really have an effect on you. So we also help our clients figure out where they should be sowing that story, the kinds of people that they should bring into their organizations that are going to believe that story and thrive on that story. And the last piece is grow. How do you pay attention to this as you grow as a culture, as an organization? How do you stay true to it? Always keeping an eye on it, always assessing it. We do a lot of culture assessment work with some of our clients, with one of our shared clients in CR. And this is where the growing piece is. And this is where people a lot of times will get lost and the story will start to fall apart as you get into the doings of every day. It's sometimes hard to be on values or to live on values as an organization. So this mantra of know, sow, grow is very important and central to our own business. Do you have a vision that people in the organization actually believe in, understand? Do you have a clear purpose? Do you have clear values? Are those values identified? Are they aspirational values, or are they literally values that are being lived? And so I think a lot of barriers is just the actual identification of these what I would call sort of the seeds of the shared story, the most important pieces. And then I would say once you have that identified, probably the first place, and it's no surprise from our poll, that if leadership isn't the first ones to get on board and to live that and together to manage the organization against that shared story, that is going to be a barrier. People always do look up. They look up to see what kind of behaviors are being role modeled from leadership. And I think it's really important to know the story and then to sow that story in leaders who have the ability to be that story, to live it every day. There's a great teacher named Margaret Wheatley. I don't know if you know her. Turning to One Another is a book that I sit on my shelf. I constantly refer back to it. And she's quoted as saying that the world changes when everyday people gather around a table and begin to share their stories. And what happens is they start to see their similarities and their differences, but they start to really see what they share, and they really start to shape new stories. And then, and that idea, as she would go on to say, is at the basis of all social change. So whether it was the change in India with Gandhi, or the change in Liberia with Lima Gabawi, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, or our own country here in the US, if you look at King, or you look at the suffrages, the suffragists who fought for women's right to vote, they all at some place gathered around and started talking about their stories, what they were thinking, and that's what really motivated them to make a better world for themselves. This is probably some of the most exciting work we're doing, and I could talk about it forever, so I'll try to be quick and brief. One of the things that kind of was born out of our work was, who is this worker that we want to be at NCR? Like, who is this ideal worker? And working very closely with their Talent Innovation Center of Excellence, and actually calling out to what they call their ambassador network, the people that are really living that story and that shared story, and loving and are very engaged with their job.
That story started as a customer story.
Oh yes, absolutely. So when I was brought into the organization in late 2013, I came in the brand and marketing business. But as I got in, what I started to realize is that we were, NCR was they were talking about the brand externally. And my belief is that whatever we were saying about ourselves externally, we have to live internally. So their story, their brand essence that they talk about is every day made easier. So you could quickly say, well, if we're going to say that we make every day easier, then we need people inside that make every day easier. Who are those people? Their promise as an organization is to create the most exceptional experiences for their customers. And they have a very, defined way of doing that. And so what we said was turn that inside. Talk about that exceptional experience for that worker. And who is that worker you're going to build that experience for? And what bubbled up out of the organization was this idea of incredible. And if you think about the word incredible, of the first 4 letters, 3 of those letters are NCR. And so this incredible persona is really the person that they want to have in their organization. So their job as an organization is to build an experience now that's going to appeal to an incredible, this person who wants to be and do the most incredible work that they can, that is going to do it in a way that's in line with who NCR is as a culture, with their values and their vision. And really can bring this idea or their essence to life externally, this everyday made easier. So our employee branding campaign that's come out of the work is this idea of seizing the everyday. That Incredibles are these people that seize the everyday. Everyday moments, the mundane moments, the more important moments, they seize every one of them. They create exceptional experiences for everyone during their days. And that was really powerful, and it's resonating. And now it's a basis for how we recruit. We literally have identified, like, these are the qualities of an Incredible, and we're starting to build our recruiting models. We're thinking about where we're talking about our company as an employer. What are those spaces where Incredibles go every day to get media, to read stories, those types of things. We're thinking about how we onboard them. How do you onboard an Incredible? What are the things that they need in their onboarding experience to be delivered to them? What are you facilitating for them? How now are you growing them and coaching them as Incredibles, helping pull out the best work? So you also now have, obviously influence on leadership development and learning and all of those different areas, that are about growth and coaching. And that's a beautiful story that's coming to life before our very eyes inside NCR every day, more and more. And it is a journey. They recognize that there's growth to that, but they're really using it as sort of their rally cry. And it's a really, I think, powerful employee branding campaign. One of the things that has always been sort of with me is this aligning myself or just having projects that appear that are really about launching or transforming. I mean, this has always been with me. And it's no different today. We were approached by a major media company who is expanding into Latin America, and they needed to, strike up a relationship with all of the buyers of big companies like Procter & Gamble and General Motors and all these global companies that would be buying, their airwaves and doing marketing programs with them. And so where we really started was not about, internal culture, but we talked about, what culture do you need to build and what's the shared story that you want to communicate and have with your buyers, and how can we build a culture of customers around you who believe in your offering, who believe in your story, and so that started with identifying sort of that story and then bringing it to life through experiences with those customers where messages were reinforced and they became part of sort of that. And I don't know if you want me to get specific, but I can get really specific.
Get specific.
Okay. So the company itself was HBO, HBO Latin America, and we worked with their Cinemax. They launched Cinemax brand, and they're in the process of doing that right now. But the 250, their largest 250 buyers who all sit in Miami, Florida, for working with big buying groups, we needed to sort of help them, reach out to them in ways that they had never done and build relationships and partnerships. What was great, and what I love as a storyteller and as someone who's really, an experience builder, is that we got to use the Game of Thrones brand, which is an HBO mark in the US, but actually the show is going to air on Cinemax in Latin America. So through the Game of Thrones story itself, we built a very live, immersive experience where we invited people into the world of Cinemax and into the world of Game of Thrones. And all of these buying groups were given their own crest. They were given their own sort of like flag and banner, and we literally called them as buying groups to a castle in Miami where we had a 5-hour experience talking about the brand, and we really built culture. And what was great, and this is the story I was sharing with you, is that these buyers We didn't even think about this, I don't think consciously, but as we saw it play itself out, they were so proud of the company and the culture that they worked for, their buying groups. And so when we called them and we had this little processional at part of the presentation where people walked down the aisle with these banners, they were standing up and cheering, and they were so excited. And we thought that was wonderful because Cinemax actually got to buy into the relationship and the emotional equity of that moment. That moment was facilitated by Cinemax. And to me, that was beautiful because now they'll go back with their banner proudly, which they couldn't believe they got to keep, and now they're all in their, their offices. That moment was something that was created. And it really did start the buildings of a culture of buyers around, the Cinemax brand in Latin America.
Right. And the connection piece seems
the
to be
connection
really
piece.
Key to that it wasn't just reading about the culture, but it was that experience that they had that formed that bond that now is going to help be the basis of success.
Yes, and it was the first conversation. So this might be in what we're used to in the States, we call them upfronts. And so this was their first upfront as Cinemax with them talking about the rollout of Cinemax in Latin America. And the conversation continued. And our clients say they have never been busier. So they're busy, and that's great, And
I think that's another important point, that was the first moment, and that this is a journey.
Yeah.
That it's not, we can't expect organizations of any size to change just by one moment in time, but it really has to be a concerted effort that helps drive this effort forward that grows and grows within an organization.